Good morning, everyone. Back on the Sunday before Lent, the theme of the ministry of the Word was Transfiguration. You may remember that. Last Sunday's Gospel reading picked up on the conversations that happened just after the Transfiguration, when Jesus and the disciples have descended from Mount Tabor. Jesus is alerting his disciples to dark and stormy days ahead, suffering betrayal and death. The disciples are not ready to hear this at all. They must learn the hard way to deny themselves, take up the cross, and follow Jesus, to lose their life in order to be saved. A few days ago, I learned something new about Mount Tabor, which made me think about the weather there. Apparently the slopes were once the site of an epic battle recounted in the book of Judges, in which a Canaanite army was defeated by Israelite forces led by Commander Barak, inspired by Deborah the prophet. The Israelites were outnumbered. The Canaanites had iron chariots, a new strategic weapon at that time. It wasn't Israelite military skill that won them the victory, however, but rather the wet weather, bogging down the Canaanite army, sowing confusion among the soldiers, and the Israelites took advantage of this, knowing the terrain. Echoes there of Pharaoh's chariots getting swamped in the Sea of Reeds in the Exodus story too. Terrible weather rather than the tide was seen by Deborah as God's gift in a crisis. She encouraged Army Commander Barak to let Yahweh determine how the battle would be won, and it was won with the weather. Paradoxically, the Canaanites worshipped Baal, the fickle god of storms, but their devotion did them no good at all. Commander Barak's opposite number, Sisera, fleeing from defeat, was assassinated by a seemingly hospitable woman, Jael. Reminder that victory doesn't always belong to the strong or the smartest guys. Just like in the story of David and Goliath, if you think about it. And sometimes the weather does it for you. We've had weeks of rain and muddy walks in the park. Changeable weather, then, has been on my mind quite a lot recently. It got me thinking differently about that mountaintop moment. I dare say Jesus and the disciples were well aware of changeable weather when they went on their mountain hike. Cloud driven off the sea by westerly wind could come and go as they ascended, but they arrived without incident and settled down to enjoy the beauty of the place and give glory to God. The disciples must have watched Jesus pray to see his face light up. Have you ever sat in church and watched someone praying? They look different somehow. Doesn't it remind us that we are in God's presence? Doesn't it move us to pray too? And how about your daily exercise? Do you pray in the park as you walk? Would anyone notice from the joyful light in your eyes, in your smile? It doesn't take much to transfigure any place we're in and turn it into holy ground with a look of joy. The divine light of love, no matter how dark or bright the weather, can shine from our faces and lift the hearts of others. The Gospel comments that Jesus knew what was in a man. He understood human nature, in other words, that it could be as fickle as the weather. It could be with you or against you, changing on a whim. From Mount Tabor, Jesus set out on his last pilgrimage to Jerusalem, where people's cheers of welcome soon turned to jeers of rejection, fickle as the weather. Jesus understood, even if his disciples were unconvinced. He's ready to face the overwhelming darkness to come. The light doesn't stop pouring out of Jesus' being until the moment it's interrupted by the last breath on the cross. Interrupted, but not extinguished. Out of the darkness of the cloud which enveloped the disciples and Jesus on the top of Mount Tabor, a voice could be heard, "This is my beloved Son, listen to him." There's no end to his love. From the darkness of his last hour on the cross, we learn what true love and pardon really mean. From the darkness of his tomb, an angel was heard. He is not here, he is risen. The face of God's Son continues to radiate the glory of the Father's love for his children, no matter what the weather is like in our walk through life with him.